are bringing you complete coverage of the Democratic National Convention, which gets underway today in Chicago.
Our Jim Sharpe is at the DNC in Chicago all week, and he has a very special guest with him this morning.
Kelly, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Hey, great to be here.
Yeah. So
We're great to have you here in Chicago.
yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know, we maybe got here at the same time. It is it's crazy. Are you concerned at all about the protests? I've heard anything from 10,000 to 100,000, depending on who you talk to, when it comes to pro-Palestinian protesters. Any concerns at all about that?
I was just talking to one of the Capitol police officers. We see them in D.C. They're here. There's a big presence here. They haven't heard of anything concerning yet.
Okay.
This Monday, people have the right to come out and have their voices heard. I mean, we want that. First Amendment rights, that's really important, that U.S. citizens can come out here and let people know what they're thinking. What we don't want is stuff to get out of hand and out of control, and that's why there is law enforcement here.
What's your goal this week at the Democratic National Convention?
To support the vice president. This is an incredibly consequential election. We often say that this is the most important election of our lifetime.
I've heard it every election.
Pretty much every election, right? My hope is we won't have to say this 4 years from now.
Okay.
That it will not be, because this one is. I think Donald Trump was such an awful president who made his major accomplishments, right? Getting rid of reproductive rights for women across our country. He even said he broke Roe v. Wade.
Mm-hmm.
Tax cuts for billionaires while leaving the middle class behind. That's what we don't need that in a leader. We don't need 4 more years of Donald Trump. So my hope is after this convention, we've got about 70-something days to go into the election, and the American people rally behind our next president, who's going to be Kamala Harris, and Vice President Tim Walz, and we can move this country into the future.
So that is the concern of a lot of people, though, is their personal economic situation. There are some really great things going on in the economy, but polls show that people are still concerned about their own personal household finances and their ability to earn enough to pay for how much inflation has gone up. How much of the Biden-Harris administration is responsible for that?
Well, we came out of a botched pandemic response under Donald Trump. Supply chains were significantly affected and prices went up. A lot of folks lost their jobs. Remember, millions. Since then, we've got the economy back on track. Prices are higher. I understand that.
Yeah.
As I travel across Arizona, I meet families that are still having a hard time making ends meet. Often, folks have to make tough decisions, especially seniors, between buying groceries and buying their prescription medication.
Right.
What this administration has done, especially for seniors, transformative on prescription drug pricing. And just think about this for a second. The out-of-pocket expenses because of the Inflation Reduction Act that Kamala Harris supported, that we passed through just Democrats, by the way, through the United States Congress, is capping out-of-pocket expenses at $2,000 a year. That's changing the lives of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of seniors across just the state of Arizona. Insulin, $35 a month. These policies have profound positive impacts on folks in Arizona. And beyond that, she is focused on reducing the cost of child care, reducing the cost of groceries, housing. We've got to expand affordable housing. Just last week, I had an affordable housing roundtable. Seniors are experiencing the highest level of new homelessness in the state of Arizona.
Yeah.
And it's a big concern. Kamala Harris is focused on that. What's Donald Trump focused on? Project 2025, that's about taking away more rights. In his plan, he could possibly ban abortion medication from being shipped from state to state. There's also in there, a plan that's going to raise taxes for everyday Americans by $2,500. I mean, that's in Donald Trump's plan. Kamala Harris's plan is cutting costs, rebuilding our alliances, restoring reproductive rights for women.
There's a point where you have broken from the Biden/Harris administration, and it's on the border. You told me a few times on the radio that you don't agree with what's been done in Washington to address the border situation. How does Kamala Harris walk that fine line between this is what the last 4 years have been like, we did change things by this executive action affecting asylum. How does she say why they didn't do that 3.5 years ago?
Well, first of all, for me, I call it like I see it.
Yeah.
You know, I am a science, data, and facts person. And when the data supports, a position, that's the direction that I go in. I mean, I've always been that way, sort of, because of my job as an astronaut, as a fighter pilot. Kamala Harris has said she would sign that bipartisan border security bill that Democrats and Republicans negotiated, by the way, with her in the White House and the president. I mean, that was a plan to get this chaotic situation that we had at the border under control through legislation. The best way to do this is through legislation. But what happened? I think everybody remembers that Donald Trump told the Republicans in the United States Senate that they could not vote for this. And he was very specific why. He said he needed to have this for an election issue. I've never seen anything like this, not only while I've been in the United States Senate, but I don't remember ever a politician saying, don't solve the problem. That is clearly a problem. Mm-hmm. And he knows it's a problem because he's got an election coming up.
But why didn't President Biden solve the problem prior to when he signed that executive action regarding asylum, which just seemed to make a huge difference?
Well, as I said, the right way to do this is through legislation.
Gotcha.
And we were working on the legislation, and we've been working on it for a while, and we had the votes. The plan was to come up with about 40 Democrats were going to vote for this, and about 20 Republicans. It was strongly bipartisan. And he didn't change his mind. He instructed them that they were not allowed to walk away from this. And they didn't walk away from it. They turned around and ran, with the exception of about 4 Republican senators. And I got to give them a lot of credit. Standing up to Donald Trump, not an easy thing to do, but they did the right thing. But we didn't have the votes to pass it anymore. So when that happened, the only option was for the administration, for the president and Vice President Harris to do some things through executive actions. Those actions have helped. They've brought the numbers down. What would have been better is the bipartisan legislation, which would have done a lot more. It would have been more pay for Border Patrol agents. We would have been able to hire more Border Patrol agents, more CBP officers. There were so many positive things in that legislation. And Jim, this was not meeting the Republicans like on the 50-yard line. This was meeting them on the 10-yard line on their side of the field.
There are fewer Democrats in Arizona, registered Democrats, than when you were elected to the U.S. Senate.
I don't keep track of that. I'll take your word for it.
But no, that's the case. There's all this talk about Arizona Street Blue. How much reaching out to the middle ground are you going to have to do to help Kamala Harris and maybe even Ruben Gallego get elected to office?
Well, I'm going to do whatever I can. And independents are the largest registered party in the setting.
Yeah.
It's not really an organized party.
Right.
It's the largest registration category in the state of Arizona. I used to be a registered independent before I ran for the USA as a Democrat. I changed my registration. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure she wins Arizona. I believe she is going to win Arizona. She's going to win the election.
I told everybody before this interview that my first question was not going to be, so how disappointed are you that you didn't get the VP nod? So I'm not going to ask that question. But what was that vetting process like? Was it harder than getting security clearance?
I was honored to be considered. What I'm focused on now is November 5th. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure that Kamala Harris is our next president so we can move this country forward. Donald Trump, he wants to drag us back into the past.
What is the most important thing that Vice President Harris has to say on that stage here in Chicago on Thursday night?
Well, I think she's great at speaking to the American people about the issues that they care about. She cares about our country. Donald Trump, what did he do? He shredded our alliances. She wants to rebuild our alliances. She wants to restore reproductive rights. He's trying to take away rights from women. Beyond what he's done already with the Dobbs decision, with appointing this court that took away abortion rights, he wants to go beyond that with abortion drugs. He has previously said he wants to punish women who give abortions. He has said he would sign a nationwide abortion ban. So I think it's important that the vice president speaks to the American people about the things she cares about. I know she cares about families. She cares about putting groceries on the table, reducing prescription drug prices. She cares about affordable housing. So on issue after issue, the contrast between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump could not be more clear. And I expect the American people to see that after the speech on Thursday.
Senator, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And we'll send it back to Jamie and Jeff.
That's right. Thank you very much. Keep it here on KTAR for complete coverage of the DNC in Chicago. That's Jim Sharpe, and he was interviewing U.S. Senator Mark Kelly. Jim's there all week. He'll be hosting a special show each afternoon through Thursday, immediately following the noon news expansion.
Thanks for watching Arizona's Morning News. Click to watch more from KTAR News and hit the button in the middle to subscribe.